Assutava Sutta 1, ST 20.2. There are two of this Sutta, Assutava Sutta, Sutta 1, Sutta 2. Sutta 2 is a bit more detailed. And Sutta 1 is just nice. It's got all those important things we need to know. And I'm so happy to be able to come back to this sutta because it helps me understand better the 4 kinds of self-view, which can be quite complicating. And today, I think I'm getting it more clearly. I started translating the sutta in 2006, so I've been kind of with the sutta off and on over the years. So remember, studying suttas is like learning to breathe. It's like, doing giving your precepts. You're practicing. It's not like reading the papers. You read it and throw it away. You go on reading it, and then it becomes your friend, your mental friend, your spiritual friend. And as we age, this is the wonderful thing about suttas over the last 50 years. As we age, we begin to know this sutta friend better. We feel more connected. You see the teachings becoming more connected, more clearly, even though we may not be able to express it as clearly, but we know this connection and you feel so good about it. One of the happiest moments is when I do a translation and I need there's another sutta mentioned, and I found, oh yes, I've translated it. Then I compare the translations and improve the translations. So we upgrade the translation. The wonderful thing about Buddhism is that it's a teaching of translations. If you can, Pali, you translate it, and your translation is your practice. So there's no perfect translation. You look at it and you improve it. And by proofreading it, you learn a lot. And then, of course, by teaching also, you learn a lot. As the Vimutta Yatana Sutta says, you can even get awakened while teaching, while listening to the sutta, for example. Okay, this word Assutava is the opposite of Suttava. Suttava comes from Sutta. Notice it's one T only. Sutta. Here comes from the root meaning to hear. Sutta means one who has heard a lot. Bahu Sutta. Sutta is one who has heard, and that's in our times we say well read, but this is well heard. Someone who is wise is said to be Bahu Sutta, well heard. Here Sutta means one who has heard, who is wise, who learns. In front means no, just like no in Latin. There's a double S here, just to make sure we know that the this pronounced A is pronounced as Sutta. Okay, the wa makes it an adjective. Sutta 1. So here, Assutava, the untutored, the one who is difficult to teach or who does not learn. So the Sutta 1, the first discourse. Of course, in Pali, you can say Patama Assutava Sutta. Patama means first. The first discourse on the untutored. S 12.61. Samyutta chapter 12, Sutta 61. The theme is impermanence of the mind, dependent arising, and nibbida. Nibbida means revulsion. I'll explain the term later. Okay, so this sutta is interesting because we also look at the 3 words that are used in the sutta for the mind: chitta, mano, and vijnana. So they're kind of very closely related. Right? Chitta basically refers to your thoughts. Mano is the mind, the functioning mind, the mentation, if you like, the minding. And vijnana, of course, is the consciousness, is the background, the whole infrastructure, if you like. Well, this is my own translation. You find that there are different translators, they will translate differently. But when it comes to explanation, you find we've got to go back to the suttas. So citta, mano, vijnana, three terms you can't really talk about, but you have to know how to use them. You must know the context. They're more contextual terms. It's very difficult to kind of define them like in a technical manual, because in Pali, many of the important terms, they overlap. Because we're talking about the mental functions, they tend to connect to each other. So there's overlapping. Right? So it doesn't matter. You don't have to have one exact word for one thing. There's no such thing as one thing. It's the different ways of looking at the mind. So these are different words for different ways of looking at the mind, different ways of talking about the functioning of the mind, so that we understand. Right? So if we say we're technical, we are caring more for the words than the actual functioning and understanding what's going on. So in the suttas, we want to understand what's going on in our minds, right? So that the words are helping us. So we'll come back to these three terms later. We will look at the sutta, and as we go along, when we come to those difficult terms, I'll come back, go back to the notes and go through them with you and help us understand better what's going on in our mind, what the Buddha is teaching us here. As I said, every time I teach the sutta to you, I feel I'm reminded there is this connection with the Buddha. The teaching is still available to us today. The Buddha is so wise in preserving his teaching in such a way that it comes down to you and me sitting here and studying the suttas together. And some of you are from India, others from all over the world, and you find it's amazing, to be able to study this together as a global community of peaceful people. Okay, let's look at the sutta. Let's go down to the translation itself. Here we are, Assutava Sutta 1, the first discourse on the untutored, S12.61. So either remember the sutta name or the number, or both if you like. You can also remember the SD number, SD 20.2. I usually remember the SD number so that I can locate it quickly. All right, thus have I heard. Ananda recited these teachings he's heard from the Buddha to the first council, as it is said, and it is put together, recited like a song, and recited by the learner monks, the learning monks, and then it goes down through the ages, down to our times. Of course, this learning by reciting is being challenged by modern learning. The learning by recital is the oral tradition, which relies on memory, and it's really amazing. People can remember all these things, and it places a lot of emphasis on personal experience. Now you have academic learning. Academic learning means you put them into writing, you can see them, they become things, and they are measurable. So what you remember, that's what's measured. Whether you understand it or not, no one can really know. So some people get very excited with this academic learning and the titles. I hope they'll learn something from there as they mature. That there is it's good to learn something, but you got to go beyond that, basically. Not just learning as words, but also learning as experience. All right, so the oral tradition is about learning through experience. And you can also make academic learning as something experiential. If you can do that, because you will benefit a lot. I try to do that. So now you have this subtitle. I put in the subtitle for you so that you have an idea what you're going to read. It's a kind of summary. We tend to own our minds. What does this mean? Okay, so this is what the Buddha teaches us. At one time, the Blessed One was staying in Anathapindika's park, or monastery park, in Jetas Grove near Saravati in northern India. And here again, you see a subtitle. You see here, it's small caps, but no underline. So it means this one is a sub group of this big title. 2, section 2. Pictures, these are the monks. The untutored worldling. Okay, here you have untutored Asutava, someone who doesn't learn sutta, not interested. Worldling, very worldly person. He will talk about anything else except the suttas. The untutored worldling might be repulsed towards this body made of the 4 great elements, or he might be dispassionate towards it, or he might be freed from it. Now, this sutta is amazing because the Buddha makes some interesting statement which we don't normally hear, and he puts them very simple words. So we don't normally hear this. Normally the Buddha would say the wise disciple. But here the Buddha says the untutored worldling. So here, anyone out there also has a chance to be freed, to awaken. That's good news, right? So here the Buddha says even an ordinary worldly person can be shocked, can be sick of the body, revulsed, shocked, sick of the body, sick of this body made of the 4 great elements. Okay, 4 great elements, Mahabhuta Rupa. Mahabhuta Rupa, earth, water, fire, wind. This was before the age of science, and the Buddha sounds quite scientific. The Buddha says, well, if you look at this body, well, first of all, we have mind, we have body, right? And the body has a physical state. It's made up of 4 elements, 4 aspects: earth, water, fire, wind. Earth are the solid aspects, the bone, the teeth, the skin, and so on. Water is a liquid, with mostly liquid fluid in our body, blood, tears, sweat, urine, and so on. Then there is fire, heat, our metabolism, and so on. And our decay, the decaying process that starts with birth. That's fire. And finally, wind. And wind is the motion, movement that we go through. Earth, water, fire, wind. Okay, so these are very basic. This is a very basic definition of the 4 elements. So our body is made up of the 4 elements. It's changing all the time, even though it is physical. So some people may get sick of the body in a sense. Maybe they feel, oh, you know, they don't feel good. You know, maybe they feel they're too skinny, or they're too fat, or the body is not the right shape, and so on. You'll be amazed. You will be amazed to see how people today, if they have a lot of money, they try to reshape their body, and there's a big industry there. Oh, this worldly person may feel dispassionate, just simply not interested. It's possible they can have that feeling also. It doesn't mean they're holy, but they're just too busy with other things. They don't care about their body. Of course, there are problems here. You know, what do you mean by not caring for the body? Then as you age, you'll suffer all kinds of pain, sickness, because you don't take care of the body, right? So the wise disciple also take care of the body. The arahats, the Buddha, take care of the body. They do daily exercise, walking up and down. They get up in the morning, they go for an alms round, or walking all the time. There's a lot of walking in the monk's life, the life of the disciple, and the nuns too. And somebody walks for kilometers. You know? So it's not a matter of not caring. Dispassionate doesn't mean not caring for the body. It means you take the body as it is, and you don't get kind of, you know, carried away by it, right? Rather, you carry this body with dignity, with wisdom, and with care. You take care of this body so that it's healthy, and you can support the mind, and you can do Dhamma work, you can practice meditation. If you are really sick, it's hard to meditate. Oh, and if you do that, even this worldly person can become free. Momentarily, at least their minds are free. They feel peaceful. They feel good. And it's a big industry today. You can even get a license to teach meditation. You pay some amount of money, and within a few weeks, voila, you are a meditation teacher. You got a paper, whereas I don't have any paper. I mean, this Ajahn Chah doesn't have any certificate. But so and if you meet them, I don't think I met a few of them, and they won't talk to me because I have no meditation papers. So that's what's the world coming to now. You have this industrialization, commercialization of meditation. So that's another thing. It shows the value. They see the value in meditation. So if we don't value meditation, if we don't practice it, they will take it away from us, and they will turn it into a Cinderella, so to speak, if you know what I mean. Right? So we got to practice this meditation so that it is used in a way intended by the Buddha. We can help others practice it too. All right, so here the Buddha says this untutored worldling might be revulsed towards the body, made out of the 4 elements, or you might be dispassionate towards it, or you might be freed from it. And what is the reason for this? Because bhikshus, growth or decay, oops, you're going too high up, down a bit, please. Yeah, okay, thanks. Because bhikshus are growth or decay, that is increase or decrease of the body, is seen. We can see this body growing, changing, all right? In fact, from moment of birth, the body decays, but we have nice words for babies and children. We say, oh, look at them, how they're growing up, how beautiful, how cute, and how much they look like the father or the mother. That's growth, okay? And then after 30, 40, like my age, we are decaying, and so that's the decrease part. So increase is growth, decrease is decay. So you can translate in different ways. So this is what I thought would be the best modern terms. And this is closer to the Pali, increase and decrease. You can look at 26. You have the Pali word at the footnote, if you like. Let's see. Growth and decay, right? Not 25. Achayo, apachayo. Okay? Achaya, apachaya. It's seen in this body. You can see this body changing, growing. One of my old friends recently, a really old friend, is complaining, he's got aches and pains in all the 4 postures, pressure, pain in the joints, and so on and so forth. Right? So there you are. See, you have this body not serving us properly as in the later part of our life if we don't take good care of it, because this body is made up of the 4 great elements. These elements are not, in the Buddhist time, we say they're not harmonizing, they're not working well together. Of course, in modern medicine will explain you in great detail, although we don't understand exactly what they're talking, but they have all the medicines for you. But the point remains, you got to take care of your body early, before the senior years. But it's not too late, because like for me, I was 70 when I was given good advice to start exercising, and that helped a lot. That's why I'm still sitting here, able to translate, able to talk to you, able to, enjoy the suttas. So here you are. We notice all this as it is seen being taken up or being cast aside. Taken up, that means reborn. Cast aside, passed away. Very dramatic words. It's really a beautiful words. You don't see this kind of language structure in other suttas. So let me summarize here again. So how is it that worldly people are able to look at the body and then they learn to say, oh, I don't like this body for various reasons? It's because they see this body, this physical body, changing and, not serving all their needs and purposes, right? So therefore, says the Buddha, the untutored worldling might be revulsed towards this body. Revulsed, I mean, they're kind of like shocked by it, they don't like it, because the body is made up of the 4 great elements, or he might be dispassionate towards it, but doesn't care about it, or he might learn to be free from it. He might, looking at the body, he might think deeply and then change, turn to the Dharma. Now, so the Buddha begins by talking about the body, how the worldly people look at the body, right? Then the Buddha turns to the mind. Next section, section 4. But bhikshus, remember when the Buddha said bhikshus is talking to us, it's telling each of you, and I said, okay, now there's something new here, I'm going to tell you, says the Buddha, right? But bhikshus, as regards to what is called thought, notice it's bold, and there's a note there, or mind, and then there's a bracket mentation. That means you can use either word, but the mind is more familiar, or consciousness. So you've got 3 notes there. That means these are important words. So if you really want to teach yourself Dharma, you start by reading the suttas. Read the sutta and then you follow these notes as you can. It's not easy to follow all the notes, but follow what you're interested in, what helps you, what you want to know. So these are 3 words for the mind. But bhikshus, as regards to what is called thought, or mind, or consciousness. Okay, here let me just explain a bit. I've used commas here, right? There's a big debate on, it's called the Oxford comma. You don't have to use the comma here because if they are referring to the same things. But here, you can say they're referring to the same thing, and yet they are not. I would rather say they are not, because they are different aspects of the same thing. So thought is, in a sense, one idea. I don't say one thing, I say one idea. The mind is another idea, and then consciousness is another idea, right? And yet they overlap in a big way. So this is one of the problems when you use English to translate this very different world of wisdom, right? So thought, mind, consciousness. The untutored worldling is unable to be revulsed towards it, unable to be dispassionate towards it, unable to be freed from it. Okay, so here the Buddha is comparing what he said earlier. He says earlier, when you talk about the body, some people in the world, they can just be disgusted with the body. They don't care about it. They just eat until they go round like a ball, or they just don't exercise, or they can be really calm about it, you know. On the other hand, when it comes to the mind, says the Buddha, when you talk about thought, about the mind, about consciousness, the world, these worldly people he was talking about, don't have this kind of attitude towards the mind. They think this mind is, well, they don't think much about the mind really, but generally it is in a better position than the body. So the Buddha is trying to show here how the world looks at the body and the mind differently. They can see the body, but they can't see the mind. See? So the Buddha is giving emphasis on knowing the mind. So why is it that these people in the world do not see the mind the way they see the body? What is the reason for this? 5. No? What is the reason for this? Because bhikshus, for a long time, it has been held, cherished, and grasped by him. Thus, this is mine, this I am, this is myself, right? So there you are. We own the mind. You see. We may not say exactly words like this, but that's the feeling, that's the understanding, that's the view we have. So this is called self-view. The Buddha has put it into words first so we can identify this problem. The worldly person thing, in fact, you can say, as long as we're not awakened, we think, okay, this is mine, this thought is mine, this sutta translation is mine, this I am, right? When you're meditating, this I am, this is myself. But this one is quite tricky how we see this. Of course, as Buddhists, we may think, oh, I don't believe in the self, but we still have the idea, this is myself. The idea is there. It takes time for us to understand what it means to say there is no self. But it doesn't matter. We are getting there. So basically, worldly people still think in terms of mind, I, and self when I think of the mind. Therefore, the untutored worldling is unable to be revulsed towards it, unable to be dispassionate towards it, unable to be freed from it. Okay, so now the Buddha explained why the worldly people are caught up with the idea of the mind. So the Buddha makes a remarkable statement here. I think this is the only place, the only sutta in the other second Assutava Sutta also, where the Buddha makes this remarkable statement. Remember this, 6. It would be better, bhikshus, for the untutored worldling to take this body made up of the 4 great elements rather than the mind as the self. Right? Imagine the Buddha says, if you want to believe in the self, okay, you regard this body as the self then. This is skillful means, where it's not lying, it is something you can do. The Buddha says, you go ahead, you do this, because you're going to learn something wonderful. So the Buddha is not tricking you with a lie. He's using the truth, but slightly bending it a bit, telling you, okay, you can do this, and this is, the result's going to be wonderful. So if you're not sure, mind and body and the self, take this body as yourself. All right. All right, let's look at 7. Further down, section 7. Yeah. What is the reason for this? Why did the Buddha choose this skillful means? Because this body is made up of the 4 great elements, is seen standing, remaining stable for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, for 4, 5, or 10 years, for 20, 30, 40, or 50 years, for 100 years, or is seen standing for even longer. Okay? Now you got to be patient here. This is the style of the oral tradition. You're supposed to listen to a recording of this. Imagine the Buddha is talking. It's amazing. It's beautiful voice, So here we have put it into writing. So it looks odd when you write it. That is why you find now you've got this famous monks. They're trying to modernize all this translation, and many of these modern translations sounds really odd. But anyway, it's there. I'm sure there are people who like reading those things because it's simple. But we want to understand what the Buddha is saying also, not just we want it to be simplified. Sometimes it is so simplified, you learn nothing from it, then you have a problem. But here, you read it, you may say, wow, it's a lot of words, but you have a good idea what the Buddha is trying to say. You look at this body made up of 4 elements, it is solid. You can see this body stable for your whole life, for a long time sometimes, 100 over years even. We go for our senior exercise every 3-4 days, if possible, a week. You see all these old people, some of them nearly 100 years old, and they're still standing and strong and doing the exercise. Of course, sitting down in the chair doing it. So you think, wow, this body is good, it's strong, right? So we have this idea. But okay, now I'm going to read to you the next section, and then we'll take a break, all right? Because this is the deep part. Parables. Night and day, that's one parable, and then the monkey, there's another parable. 7.2. But that which is called thought, or mind, or consciousness, arises as one thing and ceases as another, like night and day. Okay, that's the parable, night and day. No? So notice here, the Buddha first talks about the body. The body doesn't seem to change. That's why we can view it as self. This is what the Buddha tells the worldly people. Say, okay, you want to talk about self? Take the body as self. Just for as a view, not as truth, as a view. But the mind, it changes so fast. The rise and falls, the rise and ceases like night and day. Right, so that's the first parable. It's different like night and day. Day changes to night, night changes to day. Then you have a second parable. Just as a monkey, bhikshus, roaming through the forest and mountainside, takes hold of one branch, letting that go, then grabs another. Okay, that's the parable, the key parable, and then the explanation. Even so, bhikshus, that which is called thought or mind or consciousness arises as one and ceases as another, like night and day. Now, this is an amazing set of parables, two of them. First, the Buddha gives one parable, then he quotes another parable, and then quotes the previous parable. You don't see this elsewhere. It's amazing, you know. All right. So here you are. You find this sutta was selected by Ratna for us to study again. So you find this short and beautiful sutta showing us all these amazing wise words. The mind changes like night and day. Now, the second parable of the monkey is often misquoted. You heard of monkey mind, right? So they say, oh, the mind is like a monkey. That is a kind of extended, it's a new idea in modern times. Here, the parable of the monkey is this. The monkey moves from tree to tree. The monkey grabs one branch and it swings, and then halfway it lets go of the previous branch and catch the other branch, and it goes like that. Here, number 8 is an extension of parable in 7.2. So this monkey holding one branch and then letting go and then grasping another branch is to show the same idea. The mind changes. The mind is always grasping an idea. Right? So that's the intended interpretation in the sutta. On that important note, I will take a break here. Okay, there you are. Okay, so this is the important, interesting part, right? The 4 kinds of self-identity view, okay? This is something I've been struggling for years. So now we see this connection. We have the aggregates here, then a comparison to the flame, the shadow, and so on. And then self-view. This is from the M1. So now, first of all, when people have self-view, it's always connected with aggregate: form, feeling, perception, formation, or consciousness. One of the 5 aggregates. Form is the body, right? So the Buddha mentioned the body earlier on. Some people may take feelings as self, or perception, or karma, right? And then the last one is consciousness. Form, feeling, perception, formation, consciousness. So here the aggregate is one of those 5. The aggregate as self. Now when we take the aggregate as self, take for example the body. So it's like you see the flame and the color of the flame, they are the same, belonging to the same flame of the lamp or the light. So this is the self-view in the Mula Parayaya Sutta. The view stated is, I am this body. This is the classic materialist view. I am this body. This body is my soul. Okay, so this is the first wrong view. The second one is, some people think of the self as possessing the aggregate, as possessing form, having form, okay? Like the shadow of a tree. So this is my body. So you have the I owning the body. And then 3, the third kind of view is the aggregate, for example, form, as in the self. Right? The Hindus believe this, that the body is in this big universal soul, like fragrance in a flower. In other words, the fragrance and the flower are separate, the self and the body are separate. Yeah? And the last one is the self is in the aggregate, that the soul is in the body, the jewel in the casket. Myself is in my body. This is a common belief among the animists, those who believe in spirit and who worship all these demons and so on. All right, so these are the 4 wrong views. You can read up again. The details are all here. There's also an article. All right, so it's just a quick interpretation so that we can study the rest of the sutta. All right, now we go back to where we were. Further down, the sutta 9. Section 9. Yeah, okay. So now the Buddha is telling us, what do we do now? How do we look at this? Reflect on the nature of body and mind as rising and falling. Rising and falling means cause effect, or causes effects, causes effects. 9. As such bhikshus, the instructed noble disciple. Okay, notice here, instructed noble disciple. Instructed is the opposite of Assutava, that is uninstructed, untutored, noble disciple. Closely and wisely attends to dependent arising itself, thus. Okay, now there are 2 forms of dependent arising. This is the summary, this is the shorthand, the theory of it, and then you have the long version of it. The essence of the dependent arising is this: imasming sati idang hoti, imasupada idang upajati, imasming asati idam nahoti, imasa niroda idang nirujati. When this is, that is. In logic, A, then B. With this with the arising of this, that arises, right? When there's A, there's B. A simple example: when there is craving, there is suffering. All right. When this is not, that is not. No craving, no suffering. With the ending of this, that ends. So this is the basic idea, the theory. And then when it's applied into the 12 links, here this is the one 9.2. So I'm going to summarize this, all right, because of shortage of time. We start with ignorance. When there's ignorance, we do all kinds of karmic activities called volitional activities. And that feeds our consciousness. This consciousness depends on name and form. The consciousness, our senses, name things, and then there is this image or thing in the mind, and then we give it a name. Then we are able to understand it. Okay, go further down. Then we have the sense basis arise because of this idea of name and form. And then there is this contact. Contact means a sense able to make sense of it. We see it, hear, smell, taste, touch it. And because of that, we like it, we don't like it. This the feeling aspect arises. We see it as pleasant or unpleasant is the one. And that's when craving arises. When we think it is nice, we want it, craving. And when we crave for something, we cling to it. And when you cling to it, you become it, that is existence. And that leads to more becoming, to birth. And with birth, there is decay and death. And with decay and death, there's sorrow, lamentation, physical pain, mental pain, and despair. This is how suffering arises. Then you have the opposite of it, the ending of it, right? With the ending of ignorance, all the other links collapse like dominoes. Okay, so in essence, the Buddha wants us to reflect on the 12 links, and when you do that, then you'll get awakened. Let's look at 11 now. 11 further down. Yes, 11. Okay, so seeing thus, right, in understanding dependent arising on the nature of the mind and the body, the instructed noble disciple is revulsed towards form. We know form as it is. We say, oh, okay, that's it, doesn't last. It's nature to get sick and so on. He is revulsed towards feeling too, right? This is the second of the aggregates. He is revulsed towards perception. It revolves towards formations, it revolves towards consciousness, all the five aggregates. Here revolves means he understands just what it is, these five aggregates. Revolves doesn't mean hate. Revolves means you are careful with it. Like, fire burns, you're not going to put your hand inside it. So you're very careful with this fire. Through revulsion, he becomes dispassionate, right? He stands away from the fire and says, well, just stands quietly there. Through dispassion, the mind is freed. Because he knows this, it's no more burnt, so it's safe. It's free from suffering. When it is freed, when the mind is freed, there arises the knowledge. Freed. You don't say, I am freed, or this free, or that free. It's just free. This wonderful feeling, freed or free. Okay? And that person becomes an arahat. Further down, further down, please. Okay, there you are. So this person, he understands what? The Four Noble Truths. Death is destroyed. The holy life has been lived. What needs to be done has been done. Keeping the Dhamma and Vinaya. There is no more of this state of being, no more rebirth, no more suffering. This is the arahat. This line can be experienced even in daily life if you understand the suttas, you practice the Dhamma. You compare yourself to your friends, others who are so worldly, they are caught up with the world, and you see them suffering. Then you tell yourself how lucky you are. The Dhamma, you have stayed away from all these temptations, all this worldliness, right? So there's no more of this kind of negativity in you compared to your worldly friends, right? So there's a small awakening, if you like. This is the big one. This is the arahat. Okay, there you are. So this is a bit of, I hope I've simplified the teaching for you to reflect, for you to read again the notes in detail. So we have about 15 minutes of question time, if you have any.
Thank you, Piya, for the teaching. Now we have our Q&A. Anybody wants to ask a question? Yeah, there is a question here from Sister Feeling. Okay, what is the right Pali term to describe the Buddhists that learning and practicing the Dharma like us, as we are not Assutava Putujana, untutored worlings, neither we are the Arya as well.
Oh, those are labels. Don't worry about the labels, okay? We can label us anything. You just like you get a can and you paste anything you like. When you're trying to sell something, well, so long as we're not trying to sell ourselves, you don't need labels. To be honest with you, I don't know how to label myself. I'm happy to be here, right? Of course, that's not a very good answer. I'm sure we want some words, huh? Well, first of all,
Kalyana Putujana, sorry.
okay. Okay, Rada will take over the next stop, okay? All right. Yeah, that's a good word. Kalayana Putujana. Kalyana means good, beautiful. Putujana means still whirling. You'll still be reborn, but you keep the precepts. Kalayana means you keep the precepts. You try your best to keep the precepts. Keeping precepts doesn't mean you don't break them. It means you know when they are broken and you find out why, and then you make amends and then you better yourself. That's the meaning. It is suffering, and suffering is the teacher. That's how we progress as Putujanas. You don't suddenly, Zen star pop, you get enlightened. It's not like that. We go through, we grow, we change, then we learn. All right. So you compare yourself now from 10 years ago, you find you learn so many new things. You're a wiser person. The willingness to learn, I think that's a nice phrase, I think. If people ask me, that's what I like to say. I say, I'm really curious about Buddhism. I really want to understand what is the Buddha teaching us. And when I understand what the Buddha is teaching us, in time, I will also experience what he has experienced, his awakening. But from his words, you find it is so clear and helpful. the description of his mind, see, the awakened mind or awakening mind. All right. So somewhere there, I hope you find some useful answer for yourself. Okay. All right. Next question.
Thank you, Piya. Further from Sister Philin, seeing the Dharma, like seeing the dependent origination, seems always key to arouse the revulsion, dispassion, liberation of mind, then true knowledge. The key is how we ensure we are on the right track on seeing the Dharma.
Okay, we won't know whether we're on the right track or not when we are on the track. Notice when you're traveling, you just stick to the path. That is what the Buddha normally advises. Stay on the path, the Buddha says, right? And then one day we realize, oops, we have gone off the path, right? Then we go back in. And then we climb on the high spot, like a little hill, and then we look down and say, oh, okay, this is where we have gone, this is where we should go, this is what to avoid, and so on. So we do make mistakes. That's why there are precepts. Precepts means we make mistakes. It means we will break them. And then you find out why you break them. And then you stop breaking them. Only with the understanding and the knowledge, you'll stop breaking them. The stream winner knows when he or she has broken a precept, and then it examines why, and then he or she corrects herself. All right. So that's called learning. Learning means you know you're not perfect, you know you're not awakened, but you want to take that step forward. And that's what the Buddha means by saying, don't stop. Take that next step forward, move on. The short statement is move on. Don't stop, move on. Well, I suppose you can stop for a while, for a breather, and say, but you got to keep moving in your practice. Don't fall back. Don't get caught with worldliness, basically. But if you do get caught, then be aware of it and then learn from it. It's a valuable experience because it's painful. And then you find you're better yourself. Okay?
Okay, thank you. Now we move on to the next question.
LCO
is there a question?
LCO has got a question on the
Yeah, it's very long. By this teaching of dependent origination in the layman condition would seems to be like not wanting anything, and hence this not hinder the mundane path. What does that mean?
Just read it, it's okay.
Okay. By this teaching of dependent origination in the layman condition would seems to be like not wanting anything. And hence does this not hinder the mundane world of progress and advancement of technology?
Okay. Don't read too much into words, all right? You come here to study Buddhism, not to compare all these things with technology or this stuff, you know. Technology has its place. So you ask yourself, how do I practice this Dharma? That's what you should be asking. You ask the wrong questions, you get the wrong answers. All right, and no teacher can help you there. Teachers are there when you ask the right questions. And when you ask the right question, in the end, you don't need a teacher because you already have the answer. But you need a start, so to speak, right? I asked many questions when I was younger. And I sometimes asked repeat questions, especially about the soul. I just couldn't accept the fact there is no soul, you know, when I was a teenager. And this person was patient enough to answer to me again and again, and until I'm kind of able to accept, in theory, what it's trying to say. So keep asking yourself this question. There is no immediate answer. The danger is teachers who give you immediate answers. That's it, you know. Then you find after that, you have to come back to him again. You know? So you got to ask yourself, what does this mean to me? And then connect what you know before with what you know now. Okay. Some parts of it are not important. So what if it is against technology? All right. I mean, it's not like it's going to stop Google or it's going to stop the building of the high riser next to you, you know. I mean, why bother about all these unimportant things? You know, this won't help us, you know. You just get more confused, right? So ask yourself the real basic questions. What does this mean to me? What can I learn from this? Now you have, at least you have teachers to ask questions. I have really have no one to ask questions, you know. One or two monks here and there, and they're kind enough to reply. And most of the others, the moment I say I have a question, they say, okay, I'm busy or something, you know. So sometimes you have to find the answer yourself, especially the life questions about your life. Only you can answer them. So this is the teaching of self-reliance, attasarana. Ultimately, you have to answer the question yourself. Of course, you are learning how to answer that right now. Okay.
I think this is his answer. Can
Yeah.
we learn the dependent origination as understanding the cause and effect, which will learn help the layman in the mundane world?
Answer is
That
yes.
any progress and advancement you will inevitably have causes and effect, and hence we need to carefully compute the consequences in deciding what is the best course of action to take in everyday life.
Okay, that's a long answer.
Yeah. Next one is from Sister Susie. The last verse. Is it correct application or correct understanding if I say that after advising someone and it didn't go down well with this person, so I have done my part, so just let it go?
Yeah. You see, you'll be amazed. Some things you know you need to say this thing, but it didn't go down well. The person even got upset, they might say sometimes, you know, because they cannot read your mind, thankfully, you know, they don't read our minds. But what I mean is they misunderstand the teachings because they don't have that background. Now, you all are fortunate here. You have the background, you have the good karmic grounding to sit on your seat right for the 1.5 hours to hear the suttas. Not many people can do that. They get pulled away by Mara or by some other circumstances. So you say what you need to say. Then don't be surprised one day in the future, the same person will come to you and say, remember you told me this, you know, I was angry with you at that time, but what you say is right. So if you say the right thing, you have planted the right seed and just let it grow. I mean, only a businessman will expect, right? Yeah, right now, you know, you go shopping, this businessman will ask you, right? And you're very scared of such businessmen. I normally won't buy those things because they're trying to con you, right? So you tell them the answer. It's not an easy answer. Sometimes the response not good. But you have done your part. You don't say the Dharma is pleasing, but when you say it, it may not have that effect. But it takes time in this case. Okay, the Dharma that does not take time is the one that you practice yourself. Okay, that is the one that is sanditiko, that you see here and now. Okay, okay. So be brave when you teach Dharma. Okay.
Okay, thank you for the question and the answer. Now we take a group photo.
Any last minute question not asked yet?
These learnings, so just let it go, seems like giving up and not going the extra mile to give a helping hand. Can we not find alternative methods to help out by thinking through dependent origination and cause and effect?
Okay, I won't comment on that. You can reflect on that yourself. Yeah? Okay. Today's lesson teaches us the body and mind. That we look at the body, it seems to stand. It seems not to change. So we are likely to have the wrong view that, oh, this body is permanent. But then over time, you look at it, you know it is not. But the mind is even more tricky, the Buddha says. Like the mind rises and falls, changes all the time. So when you see the word change, that means you can grow. We can grow. Okay, we grow. Yeah? To grow means you look at yourself and you say, oh, I was like this in the past, now I've changed. I feel like this now, or I need to change. So there is a voice inside you telling you, no, this is not right, do this. And listen to that voice, because it's your wisdom talking to you. All right. So that is briefly what I have to say. Now you have worked hard to sit here, to be with us together in this amazing gathering, studying the suttas, and I know you can feel the joy and the peace and the wisdom, the light of the sutta. That's why you keep joining us here. Do read up the suttas on your own so that you even understand them better, and you connect them with your own understanding. And this is a time for us to recall to mind all this goodness we have accumulated today, the learning and the peace. By this power, may you be well and happy. Tell yourself, may I be well and happy by all these things I've learned today, the peace and so on. Send your loving kindness to your loved ones, those you care about, the children, your spouses, and so on. And of course, most importantly, to remember the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the noble Sangha, who have set good examples for us. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivadin Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.